Detroit Lake City Council is called to order. And at this time, I'd like to invite all of you to please rise and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The regular agenda is before the council. Is there any items that need to be added to the regular agenda before we?
Yes, Your Honors. The Liquor and Gambling Committee has an application for a 1 to 4 day temporary on-sale liquor license for the Detroit Lakes JCs, which I understand is a stagette party February 4th.
Okay. Is there any other items?
I have one other item, Your Honor. We're going to add an item for a special event for the Detroit Lakes Shore Pose and Pole event on February 12th.
Any other items? If not, I would entertain a motion for approval of the regular agenda.
So moved.
Motion is made and seconded to approve the regular agenda. Two additions. Discussion. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The consent agenda is before the council. All items with an asterisk are considered to be routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered separately in its normal sequence on the agenda. Is there any council member or anyone in the audience that wishes to either add or remove an item from the consent agenda? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as printed.
So moved. Seconded.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Discussion. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. The minutes of the regular city council meeting held December 13th, 2022, and a work session held December 20th, 2022, and the annual city council meeting held January 3rd, 2023, are before the city council. Is there anyone in the audience or any member of the council that wishes to make any changes to those three different minutes? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion for approval of the three different council meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the minutes of the December 13th meeting, December 20th, and the January 3rd annual meeting. Discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Greta Gutt is here from the library this evening and would like to address the council. Welcome, Greta.
Thank you. Hello, Mayor and City Council members. Oh, look at that. Hey, that's all green. Green's good. And welcome to our new City Council people. My name is Greta Guck. I'm the Library Director. Just starting my 5th year as the Detroit Lakes Library Director. Connie Wood, our Library Board President, has passed out some 2022 statistics from the library that I just want to share with you for informational purposes, to give you a snapshot of the activity that happened at the library this past year. It's been a very busy and almost back to usual year, I would say, coming out of the pandemic. Our numbers are looking very good. Our programming numbers are definitely seeing a rise, so we're all very happy about that. I also just want to thank you for your support of the library. We've done a lot these last few years and have a lot of good things coming up. So I want to highlight a few things from that statistics report. Just talking about programming, because that's always kind of a fun part of what we do, but some highlights over this past year. In April, we hosted an Earth Day environmental fair. We had about 12 community partners, and it was attended by over 100 people. That was the first year that we had done that, and we plan to continue this coming year. Earth Day is on a Saturday, so we will be hosting an Earth Day environmental fair at the library on Saturday, April 22nd. We have our book bike, which had seen its 3rd summer out in the community, and this year we kicked off our book bike season by bringing it down to the DL Street Fair. We were down with where the kids area is, And we gave out 350 books over those 2 days. We also shared information about our summer reading program, and we saw an increase in our SLE program attendance and just kids who completed reading logs. And on the bottom of your sheet, I have the summer library experience statistics, and we had, I think, 251 kids completed reading logs. And what our reading logs consist of is every day you read at least 20 minutes, you mark that day off, and if you get 20 days, you have a completion. So that's a lot of reading that happened this summer for our area kids, and that's something we're very proud of and we'll work to continue. We continue to put recommendations from the community needs assessment into place. And the big news is the upcoming renovation of our bathrooms, which this is like new news. I just spoke with our contractor today, and he thinks that construction could start as early as next week. Yes, so construction is slated to last about 6 weeks. So by springtime, we should have updated, accessible, renovated bathrooms in the DL library, accessible to downtown visitors. Very exciting. I thank you for supporting the community needs assessment, which honestly kick-started the process for renovating those bathrooms, for funding the architectural and design fees. That really laid the groundwork for us to put the renovation into place, and it is happening. Along with the bathroom renovation, 2023 will bring the update of our pneumatic controls. So this will include replacing all the valves in our system, and this will modernize the HVAC system in the library, bringing it from a pneumatic system to an electronic system. So that is also very exciting for a beautiful but historic building. It's good to have these updates so that we can keep it fully functioning for all of our visitors. So that is all I wanted to share with you today. I just wanted to come share these statistics with you, give you some updates, and really just say thank you for supporting the library. I hope you see that it gets used, and we are very, very grateful to serve this community. So thank you.
Any questions for Greta tonight? Well, Greta, thank you for giving us that good information. We appreciate you coming. Thank you. At this time, I'm going to adjourn the regular meeting and call to order a public hearing to receive public comments on the proposed street and utility improvements for Summit Avenue. And at this time, I'll call on our city engineer, John Pratt. John?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Let's see if this works. As Mayor indicated, we have a public hearing tonight for the Summit Avenue Street and Utility Reconstruction Project that's slated for the summer of 2023. So with these types of projects where we plan to use special assessments as a component of the project financing, we're required by state statute to hold an improvement hearing. Along with that, we're also here to just present the information, answer questions, get input from adjacent properties or affected property owners, and explain what we're intending to do with the project. So we'll go through some of the existing conditions, what the project need is, what we're planning to do at this point, and then the estimated cost, proposed special assessments, schedule, and have a comment and question period at the end of this. So again, this is Summit Avenue, extending from Home Street north to Highway 10 is the project area. It's kind of a long 3-block, short 4-block segment. A little on the background, where did this come from? It's been on the capital improvement plan now for at least a couple of years. This initially started with the police station project. With the new PD, we were actually planning to make some improvements to Summit Avenue, at least immediately along the PD, and improve some of the pedestrian crossing and parking and some of that stuff right adjacent to the police department. But we quickly learned that we had some very, very old utilities underneath that street and sort of put the brakes on and decided at that point that we really needed probably a larger, more comprehensive project. So we sort of deferred the project at that time, moved ahead with the police station, and then set this into motion. So this past summer, we worked on some survey and some preliminary design and tried to get our arms around the project. And then we would be designing that project here over the course of the next few months bidding it this spring and then constructing it next summer. Existing conditions as it relates to sanitary sewer, really pretty straightforward. We just have some very old vitrified clay tile pipe, so it's an old type of material. It's been in the ground, best we can tell, around 70 years. Frankly, we don't have records that give us anything overly definitive, but it's old. And when we have old VCP pipe like that, it's pretty open to getting joint deterioration and infiltration and cracks and breaks and failures and things of that nature. The same is sort of true with the water main. That's a 6-inch cast iron pipe. It again is somewhere in that 70 years old category. Cast iron of this age is definitely susceptible to breaks and failures and things like that. So in a nutshell, that's what we have for sewer and water. Stormwater, we've got 12, 15-inch reinforced concrete pipe. There's not any specific issues with that we've been able to tell. There is sort of a limited number of inlets, meaning this whole area kind of drains to just a couple spots, which is a little bit unusual. And then there's no treatment for the discharge coming off the northern portion of the site, meaning it's portion of this project area discharges directly to a wetland out near Highway 59 without going through any treatment basins or anything like that. The street is where we have maybe more obvious deficiencies. It's a pretty busy roadway, about 3,500, 4,000 vehicles per day. Right now, about 46 feet wide with curb and gutter and on-street parking. That on-street parking is used very heavily with the presence of the community center, the theater, and soon to be museum in that area. If you drive it, you'll see it. There's a lot of cracking. We have a center line shift at Front Street that most people are aware of. It's kind of a jog in the road there, which can make sight lines a little bit difficult if you're trying to come on to Summit Avenue from Front Street. And there's really not very good sight lines coming out of the community center and things like that because of all the on-street parking. We've got sidewalks on both sides. They don't really meet ADA standards or current ADA standards as they stand right now. So what are we going to do? Sanitary sewer, again, pretty straightforward. We'll replace the pipe with PVC mains and concrete manholes. Nothing too interesting about it other than just replacing with current new materials. Same is true with water main. Replace that with 6-inch PVC mains, new hydrants, new isolation valves. We'd also replace all of the service laterals to the adjacent properties. Generally, that's a 1-inch water service and a 4-inch sewer, sometimes a little larger for some of the commercial buildings. We replace those out to the edge of the right-of-way, meaning we don't replace them out to the building, we place them to the edge of the property line or the right-of-way, and then it's the property owner's responsibility to make any replacements on the private property. It's not required, but we don't do that as part of the public improvement projects. As far as storm sewer, again, noted there really isn't a lot of issues with it, but most of the storm sewer, unfortunately, is the shallowest utility and has to be removed really to replace the deeper sanitary sewer and water main. So we'll replace that. We might add a few more inlets just to improve the capture efficiency on the gutters. And then we're going to look at if there's a way to incorporate some treatment to that portion of water that gets discharged without any treatment. Street and sidewalk, we'll replace this street with just a slightly narrower road, 44 foot, which is pretty typical for higher use commercial type roadway with parking on both sides. That's generally what we use. We get rid of that center line shift. By doing that, we have to get rid of some of the parking to accommodate that, which I guess in my view of it is sort of a silver lining. We would eliminate the on-street parking on the west side of the roadway between the community center entrances. And that's where we have a lot of in and out going on. And so getting rid of that on-street parking would actually, at least arguably, be a benefit. It narrows the roadway in that particular area, making pedestrian crossings just a little bit better, improves those sight lines. And usually by choking the street down a little bit like that, tends to knock traffic speeds down just a little bit. Again, something that I think would probably be a benefit to this area. We'll replace the sidewalk, 6-foot sidewalks on both sides on Turf Boulevard. This is a snapshot of kind of what it would look like. I realize it's pretty difficult to read everything on the screen here, but we will have this posted on the city's website if anybody wants to take a look at it. Just a layout of what we would be planning to do here. So on to the meat. Project costs. In total with the street and the sanitary sewer and water main and stormwater and all the project costs that we just went through, we'd be looking at a project of just over $1.6 million. Financing and special assessments. So this project would be funded by city utility funds, general tax levy, sales tax proceeds, which is effectively the money that was used to construct the police station. That's a bit of a unique scenario here. We have some leftover proceeds that we can allocate towards this particular project, which is, like I said, a little bit unique from other projects. And then special assessments to the adjacent property owners. So we figured this all out in accordance with the city's special assessment policy. And what that says is that for sewer and water, we assess 75% of the standard sewer and water main costs, and those are considered to be 8-inch mains. So if we have something larger than that, the city would assume that oversizing cost. Any looping or trunk lines or non-accessible footage, the city assumes that, but just generally speaking, it's a 75-25 split. Service laterals, 100% of those costs are assessed to the adjacent properties. And then street, we assess on a 50-50 basis, so 50% to the adjacent property owners. For residential properties, it's for a standard street, which we consider to be a 36-foot wide, 5-ton design. So that's the roadway we would build for a typical residential area. That's the basis for the assessment to the residential properties. The city would assume any of that extra width, extra strength, those sorts of things, which is in play in this case. We're building a wider, heavier road, and there are a few residential properties. So again, they're assessed on a basis of a 36-foot wide, 5-ton road, versus the commercial properties are effectively assessed for the full street, the full width, a 10-ton design, so forth. Sidewalk is assessed 25% to residential properties and 50% to commercial properties. The city pays 100% of the costs related to storm sewer. So that's what the assessment policy says. This is how it shakes out. You take those total costs and allocate them between a city share and an assessable share, and you can see the results of this. I'm not going to go through it line by line here, but interestingly enough, I guess in this project it ends up as almost a 50-50 split. I point out, though, that in that assessable column, the city has a lot of property on this project, and the city does assess itself for properties that the city own. And in this case, that starts with the fire department, the DLCCC theater museum site, the police department. So there are a lot of properties. The city is the majority property owner along this project segment. So out of that 810, I think the city has right around $450,000 of that assessable share that it would have to pay on top of its city share that would take off the top, that 817. So how do we allocate those? Again, back to the special assessment policy that gives us guidance on how we allocate that assessable share. In short, we take assessable units divided by the cost to come up with a rate, usually per foot or by each. For sewer and water, they are assessed on a front footage basis, which is basically the frontage, the width of a lot. If it's a corner lot, the assessment's made on the basis of the short side of the lot. Even if it's the long side that abuts the improvement, we assess on the basis of the short side. If we have some irregular shaped lots, we try to assign them an average value, if you will. And this gets us a cost per foot for sewer and water. And the service laterals, those are assessed on an each basis. So we take the cost of all the service laterals, divide them by the number of services to come up with a cost per each. The street's a little bit more complicated. It's not too bad in this case, but rectangular interior lots, it's basically the dimension of the side abutting the improvement, the width of your lot. That's your front footage. If you're a corner lot, it's the smaller side plus half of the dimension of the larger side, up to 150 feet, if we were making an improvement on both sides. But if you're a corner lot and it's the long side of the lot that abuts the improvement, you're assessed half up to 150 plus any footage over that 150. Again, only assessed for the side abutting the improvement. And the irregular shaped lots, we will try to look at, give them an average dimension. So here's the table that breaks all of this down. You can see there's some different rates in here for sidewalks and streets, depending if they're commercial or residential, and rates for sanitary sewer. The long and short of this, without going through every line in here, and again, if people are trying to write feverishly, we will have this up on the website, so you'll be able to take a look at it. Per the policy as it stands right now, a 50-foot residential lot would be looking at a special assessment of around $28,000. Commercial lot, about $5,000 more at $32,000. Get into a 100-foot commercial lot, you're almost $54,000, or a 200-foot commercial lot, you're almost $100,000. Acknowledging that those are significant and much higher than what we've seen in the past, and that's attributed to the costs that we've been seeing over the last year. They've skyrocketed upwards. I don't know at this point what this year holds yet. We're watching that closely. So far, I'm not seeing anything that's giving me lots of hope that we're going to see a sharp decrease in these construction costs. I think at best we're probably going to hope for it to flatline a little bit. But I'd point out here that we've had an ongoing discussion within the committee, and I think to some degree at the council level, of maybe changing the assessment policy a bit and how we've been assessing things. And we've sort of done that on a case-by-case basis on the last project or two. But there's been an ongoing discussion about having the utility funds, so the sewer fund and the water fund, actually pay the assessments for the sewer and the water main, rather than assessing those, because the special assessment costs keep ticking upwards. And right now, that's something that's being examined. So if that were to be implemented, just to give you some indication on a residential lot, if I go back to this slide, on a 50-foot lot, it would shave about $10,000 if you do the math on this. It would shave about $10,000 off of a 50-foot residential lot. So you'd be down into that $18,000 category instead of 28. But again, as the policy stands, this is how it sits right now. That's certainly up for some discussion with the council. With any luck, maybe we'll see some decreases in construction costs. As far as assessment terms and conditions, we would do that assessment hearing sometime this spring after we receive the project costs. These are just estimates, they're my estimates, and until we go out and get bids, we don't know the actual costs, so we would take bids and then have an assessment hearing where we notify all the residents and give them an actual worksheet of what their assessment would be. Those assessments would be levied starting in 2024. Apply to property taxes for a 20-year term. The property owner has options to prepay a portion of those, portion or all of the assessment to eliminate any of the interest charges. So again, here's a snapshot of the schedule. I think I've already kind of covered this, that we'd be designing the rest of this winter and then moving into construction if the project were to move ahead this summer. And then we'd have some final construction probably in the spring of 2024. Questions, Mayor?
Does anyone in the audience have a question for our city engineer or a comment?
Yes, which site should we look up for this?
I'm going to take the carry. This would be under projects or under public works?
Yeah, so if you go under the cityofdetroitlakes.com, it should be under street projects under public works.
Okay, City of Detroit Lakes.
Yep.
Yeah, if you just Google City of Detroit Lakes.
Other questions or comments from anyone? Go ahead, Carrie.
John, the crossings, are you doing bump out design, mid-block crossing by the community center, anything like that?
Just so everybody, I'm sorry not to talk
No,
directly
it's
to
fine.
you, but we're not specifically doing nodes like you would think of, but that block, if you will, between the community center entrances, we're eliminating that parking. So we're going to narrow the road, roughly 10 feet. So in effect, that crossing is shorter. It's almost like a node. We would have some crossings in that location between, the PD and so forth, because we're trying to encourage people to use the PD for overflow parking to the community center. So yeah.
Okay, I have a couple questions, if I may. I'm representing the museum, I'm the vice chair, and you said the roads will generally slow down the speed. Will it be posted at all, the speed?
I don't, at least at this point, have any intention to post the speed lower. It's already posted at 30, which we don't have anything in town posted lower than that, at least not on purpose. But I think the idea would be to get better compliance. And, you know, I can say with some confidence on narrow roadways that has that effect,
Okay,
much better than posting.
And if I may, I'm here for Becky Mitchell. She called me this morning. I'm retired, I was still in bed. Anyhow, will there be any relief for nonprofits as far as these assessments that you know of?
Well, Kelsey can cut me off or take it. You want to take this one?
Yeah, Mayor, Council, I guess at this point, right or wrong, since basically the parking lot in front of the museum is basically being deeded over to the city, we currently do not have the museum being assessed as part of this project. We do, I'm sure you got a notification to come to the hearing, but as of right now, we don't have, not planning on assessing the museum since that's basically abutting city property.
Okay, so if I write down, tell Becky, no assessments, that is.
Or you can have Becky call me. Yeah. but-
Yeah, she will. And then I have another one. I'm assuming all the city-owned entities in the area, they will not be subject to these assessments then?
No, the city will be assessing.
Yeah, but the building itself. So the museum is part of the city?
If I'm understanding your question, are you saying?
Well,
is
here's the question. There are city-owned entities in the area. Will they also be subjected to these assessments? I'm just asking all three questions you gave me.
The answer is yes. I mean, we have accounted for the police department, the fire department, the DLCCC, just as if they were privately owned properties.
Okay, so,
The
So
city
Becky
just
will be-
ends up paying the bill for it.
okay, so Becky will be getting a bill, but the city will, okay, Becky will not get a bill.
Yep.
That's what I want to make
Yep.
sure. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
John, as long as you're here, when is the museum going to be open?
Last October. I'm not joking. Things are slow. They've lost a, okay, this is sort of a secret. They've lost a huge electric panel in the mail that was supposed to be delivered in November.
Really?
Yeah.
So we don't know.
Well, maybe, yeah. They're gonna move into the office in February, but whether or not displays will be ready, I don't know. Because they don't have the parts yet. So,
All right, thank you.
thank you.
Are there any other questions regarding the Summit Avenue Improvement Project? If not, that public hearing is closed, and I would entertain a motion.
Okay, the Public Works Committee has reviewed this, and we move to go ahead and give full consideration of the resolution authorizing improvements and ordering the preparation of plans and specifications for the street and utility improvements for this Summit Avenue project, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to authorize the improvements and ordering the plans and specs for the Summit Avenue project. Discussion on the motion?
Mayor, if I may, I just want to add in, since this is a resolution ordering improvement, about sufficiently doing it for this majority to pass the resolution. So,
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I believe there are several people here for items on the Community Development Committee, which is the next area of the agenda, so I would call on Chairman Bokey.
Thank you, Mayor, and we're going to go right in order on this one. Item 5A is discussion related to creating a neighborhood commercial zoning district. This came out of last month's meeting that we really don't have a set zone defining that neighborhood commercial, so city staff is working on creating that. Kelsey, fair to say this is 2 months away before even public input or first reading?
yeah, Mayor and Council, any type of amendment to the zoning ordinance would require it to go to the Planning Commission and a public hearing, and then 2 readings subsequently at the City Council. So.
Okay, so no action on that, just more of a discussion piece. Item 5B, consideration to approving the Arts and Community Commission Strategic Plan. Kelsey, you want to take that one?
Mayor and Council, maybe I'll just tee it up here a little bit. So about this time last year, we did the second reading, creating the Arts and Culture Commission.
We've been meeting throughout 2022, and one of the first things they were working on is kind of developing their strategic plan. There's a one-pager in your packet that kind of goes through what they identify as their strategic plan, and Amy and Chris are here from the Arts and Culture Commission if you have any questions or if you want them to speak to it.
Mayor, if I may, prior to being on the city council, I was hired through a grant from the Holmes Theater to help facilitate and draft the strategic plan. So in consult with our city attorney, just felt it was a good idea for me to remove myself from voting on that since I drafted it. So I will abstain from that vote, but could possibly help with any questions. But I would refer to Amy more so than myself.
This was discussed at CDC last night with positive recommendation, so I would move this forward.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the Arts and Culture Commission strategic plan. Discussion?
The discussion I have is, as you look at the items that they're going to do, is the last two items where it says this group will meet with city officials and city boards, commissions, promote to the LACC as partners and resources and design and functions for city projects and infrastructure, and also the LACC is a member of community projects, also such as Washington Ballpark, West Lake Drive, projects at Pavilion, City Hall, and other as requested. And when this item first came up, one of the questions I asked, because we used to have this is an old committee, it used to be called Community Strategy Committee. And that's the first question I asked, is this going to be for arts? It's going to be for arts, they're going to come up with signage and lighting and that sort of thing. But now we're back to wanting to go ahead and work with design and everything. And I don't know if this group really, we've got so many people right now, plus we hire architects, we hire engineers, we hired RDG. We already have so many people involved in this, but my concern is that this group wants to get designed. I don't know, I know they've got arts people, but we've already have hired professional people with design and all this, and we've got so many commissions right now on this stuff. And the only thing I can say is that the people that need to be really more informed on this is the city council, because we really don't get as much information as you would think as the public. We've been voted to represent the city because we vote on this for taxations. But when these people all come on these committees, their concern is just getting this project done. They're not concerned about the cost. And I just think that we should eliminate those last two lines. I'm okay with the art part and stuff, but when they want to get involved with infrastructure and design and all, I think we've got that covered. We've got our own staff, our city staff, our public works people. I just don't think that we need that extra layer of onion in all these projects, because there's so many committees now, just to get something done is almost impossible. So I would like to make a motion that we eliminate those two items as far as designing infrastructure and so forth.
So we have a motion, a second on the table. You want to modify?
I'd like to modify.
Remove
those last two items, yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Before we vote,
Got a
go ahead,
comment
Dan.
on that. Mr. Mayor, I've been part of, when we did the design for the police station. We get to a certain point, I'm all in favor of, being involved in the process and being there to discuss, programming size of spaces. But as the police chief knows, once we got down to picking colors and picking, door pulls and all that stuff, that's not what you guys elected me to do. You didn't elect me to pull, do painting chips and all these other things, and I think there's people out there that can do a much better job than me to do the interior decorating or any of these pieces. So I guess I'm opposed to the amendment to the motion.
Further discussion?
I guess, Mayor, if I could, this is all new. This was not discussed last night at CDC. I guess I am not in favor of the additional motion on there. To Dan's point, I don't know what looks good in office. That's not my profession. Two, I know when you drive around Detroit Lakes, we got 64 different light posts that we use and different road signs that nothing's the same. There's no structure, and I think that's what these guys could give us guidance on and use them as a benefit that way.
And I'm not talking about light poles, you're talking about infrastructure of these buildings, and we're talking about these items already that we already have many commissions on, and my concern is that we have so many commissions already on this. I just think we've got too many layers the way it is already.
John? I'd like to just make a quick comment too in relation to what Matt just said. I think, one, the commission will help create some consistency and style guides throughout what we do. And then two, the strategic plan doesn't say how they will be involved. It just says to promote inclusion. And I think that's a key distinction here, because it's not saying that they're a stopgap, that they have to be part of everything, but instead it's saying we're promoting inclusion of them in the process. And I think it's up to us as we're working through to work with them on what that really means in practice. So because of that, I too am opposed to the amendment.
Further discussion? Jay?
In the center paragraph where it talks about increased art and culture access and engagement, is there going to be some cooperation with the Holmes Theater? Because to me, it seems like there may be some competition for artists and cultural events, and actually some competition for business supporting cultural events. Because right now, what I understand is the community center, the Holmes Theater, does get underwriting for certain cultural events from businesses, and I'm concerned that if this commission is also trying to access funds from businesses locally, there's only a set amount of monies available. So I'm worried about some competition between the Holmes Theater, which probably isn't a moneymaker, and the competition with this cultural commission.
Amy, do you want to field a question like that?
Sure.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the question.
Would you just introduce yourselves to everyone?
Yes, hi, I'm Amy Stearns, and I am the current chair of the Arts and Culture Commission. Along with me is Chris Henwood, who's one of our one of the commission members. Wendy Spry also serves on the commission, and as Jackie Buchholz mentioned, she helped draft the strategic plan for us. Definitely, yes, there is collaboration between the Holmes Theater and the Arts and Culture Commission. The Arts and Culture Commission was formed a year ago because there are certain grants that cities can apply for that independent, nonprofit, and other entities cannot apply for. And so that was the original purpose for that, was to be able to see if there is a public art program in the community that wants to happen, and there's city funds that could be, municipalities that could apply for a grant, to have a way to do that. And to do that, you have to have an Arts and Culture Commission under your city guidance. So that's where that first came from. And then definitely the Arts and Culture Commission is working with the Homes. The Homes has a visual arts coordinator on their staff who's working with some individual artists, also with the Arts and Culture Commission, to put together kind of a little collaboration between different artists. And so, yeah, really working hand in hand together.
Okay, are there further comments from the council?
I guess I don't know much about this position, and that's where I'm not comfortable with it right now, because this is all being thrown at me. This is new, and my same concerns are Chairman Durrani regarding the same issues. Are we competing against our own selves? And my thing is with these committees are supposed to be for brainstorming, bringing up ideas. Now, what influence are you going to have on the pavilion and the ballpark?
Well, it would be wonderful to be included. What our culture, or what our commission has talked about, is if we can be part of the conversations at the table. So if there's an opportunity to look at adding a piece of public art to the pavilion, perhaps that could be taken over by this commission to help find an artist to do that public art piece that might be commissioned for the pavilion, or for the ballpark, or for any new part of the city that gets created. To Chairman Boke's, or Councilman Boke's comment about the variety of different light posts. I mean, just to create kind of a synergy throughout town with the look and feel of Detroit Lakes. And also, there is no fundraising being done by the Arts and Culture Commission at all. Any project that is done by the Arts and Culture Commission would be done in conjunction with another entity in town.
And as far as funding, I'm gonna be straight up front. Are you gonna come to the council once in a while asking for money from the city for certain things?
Nothing is planned. I hate to say no, because I don't know what the future holds, but it's really an advisory commission for the city, just like a park board or like any of the other committees that the city has.
That's all I got, thank you.
Okay, so we have an amendment, it's been seconded on the table, we have a motion, and we vote on the amendment first. So all in favor of the amended motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
The amended motion does not carry, so the original motion is on the table, and that motion is to adopt the strategic plan as printed. Further discussion before I call the question? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Your Honor. Moving down to 5C, consideration of the second reading and adoption of ordinance 504, amending the zoning ordinance to allow short-term rentals in residential districts. This was discussed last night at CDC. One thing I would like to note along with this, there was discussion about the number of short-term rentals, not in with the second reading, but to direct staff later this summer to address that and bring it back up for discussion purposes at that point.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve this as well as CDC.
Is there a second? Motion's been made and seconded to give second reading and adopt ordinance 504, amending the zoning ordinance to allow short-term rentals in residential districts. Discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. And second reading is given and ordinance 504 is adopted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Moving down to 5D, consideration of the second reading and adoption of ordinance 505, amending section 3 and section 5 of the zoning ordinance of the City of DL relative to building height and other building requirements in the RA Agricultural Residential District. I'd like to call on Larry to help us out with this one.
Essentially, this would be, I didn't turn it on. Here we go. Essentially, this would be a change to the zoning ordinance relative to the RA district. It would change the lot size from 100,000 square feet to 80,000 square feet. It would also reduce the front and rear setback from 50 feet to 40 feet, and it also then specifies some building height issues. The reason that we're looking at this is that it's been pointed out that there are some areas in the city of Detroit Lakes that do not lend themselves to typical lot and block subdivision with public utilities because of the elevations that we're experiencing in these areas and because of the amount of cost that would be involved to put in lift stations to serve these areas. It would be more cost effective for each of these individual lots to have individual septic systems. So this would be areas similar to what you see coming into Hawley, where there are buildings on different levels and different plateaus or planes that aren't connected. They all have their independent well and septic, and then they also have, as you've noticed, larger outbuildings. So it's kind of a rural development in the city limits. And the reason we don't want to just leave that alone is that we want to make sure that these areas get annexed to the city because there are other city services that they utilize other than sewer and water that we would like them to be paying for, and we also don't want them to create a wall that prevents us from future annexations beyond those areas.
This was recommended for approval at the second reading of ordinance 505 last night by CDC, and I so move.
Seconded.
Motion's been made and seconded to give second reading and adopt ordinance 505. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Second reading is given and ordinance 505 is adopted.
Thank you. Moving down to 5E.
I've got a comment on that before we go further. You know, we talked a little bit last night. We have many new council people as well as older council people, and we could all get together on a minibus and have Larry and staff take us around Detroit Lakes and show where a lot of these different zoning districts are and let everybody kind of see where our border lines are so we get an idea of what we're talking on when we're at these meetings about different areas that we can do that. help a lot of us out on that, especially with this RA.
I think we could do that sometime.
I think there would be value in the planning commission as well. And many of them are new and haven't seen this.
We'll get a little bigger bus. Go ahead, Matt.
Moving down to 5E, consideration of the second reading and adoption of ordinance 506, rezoning property at 557 South Shore Drive from RA Agricultural Residential District to R2 one and two family residence districts. This is the second reading. It was approved, positive recommendation last night at CDC, and I so move.
Motion's been made and seconded to give second reading and adopt ordinance 506, rezoning property at 557 South Shore Drive, R8 and R2. Discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. Second reading is given and ordinance 506 is adopted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Moving down to 5F, consideration of resolution approving a non-conforming use expansion permit to allow a 16 by 21 foot addition to a home that has a current setback of 43 feet from the ordinary high water mark at 1886 Brainerd Boulevard. This was discussed at Planning Commission with a unanimous approval. This was discussed last night at CDC with a positive recommendation, and I so move.
Second. Motion been made and seconded to approve a resolution approving a non-conforming use at 1886 Brainerd Boulevard. Discussion on the motion? The motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Do you have anything else, Matt?
No, Your Honor.
Without objection, Dan, I'd like to jump to item 7A, please.
Sure, yeah, I was going to suggest that. They've been patient. I promised they wouldn't have to sit quite this long, but I guess they get to see the good government in action. 7A is about the Detroit Country Club, and we've got Tom and David here to discuss some of the things about the country club out there.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. My name is David Blumstead. I'm the new elected president of the DCC Country Club. With me tonight is Tom Dolby. He is our new general manager and pro that we recently hired, started work now January 1st. So just wanted to cover a little bit on our proposed rate increases and then a few things that we have changes coming for the coming year. So the rate increases, we packaged to the Finance Committee earlier. Minimal rate increases got a 2 to 5%. The overall average is about 3%. Trying to maintain, keeping the affordability. That is one of the goals of our board and the requirement of the board is to keep an affordable golf and opportunity for the people of the community, whether it's members or non-members. So based on that minimal increase, the budget still works very well. We've had a good last couple, 3 years. Financially, it's been in the black. With this rate increase, our proposed budget builds our working capital up to where we want to maintain it at the end of each year and gives us the money we need for capital expenditures as we go forward and covering our obligation to the city as well. So, as you're aware, also Chris Smith, who ran Lakeview, did the junior programs. He moved to Iowa with his family to be closer to some of his family. We're fortunate with the hiring of Tom. He brought with him his wife, who is also a golf pro, and she will be running the junior programs and the Lakeview part of the course and working with both sides. So we were very fortunate. We kind of got a 2-for-1 and feel very confident that we're going to maintain the strong youth programs that we've had in this community for a number of years. So, and then also just within the last week, Darwin Lindsay, the superintendent, got an opportunity to go to Bully Pulpit in North Dakota. He is from that area originally, a great opportunity for him and his family. So we've recently started the search for a new superintendent. The first ads for it just went out actually today. We already have a number of applicants and we hope to have this position filled actually within the next couple of weeks. So like I say, it's a good course. Financially, we're in a good position that we were able to attract really good candidates. So. And I believe that Tom also handed out a handout that shows some of the new things that are going to take place. There's some new events, new programs, some really new exciting things that are going to take place out at DCC, as well as continuing the traditions that have been going on for close to 100 years. So with that, any questions of me from Mayor, the board?
Questions of Dave? Well, it sounds really positive, so thank you for that information. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for all the support from the city.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Thanks, Tom.
All right, so we've got an action item of consideration to approving the DCC budget and rates for 2023. Finance Committee reviewed that and recommends approval, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the Detroit Country Club budget and rates for 2023. Discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. I still see a few other people in the audience. Is there anyone else that has an agenda item that would like me to move up tonight? If not, we'll just continue in the regular sequence, which is the Public Works Committee, Chairman Zeman.
Okay, item A is for discussion. One of the goals this year for the city council at our budget meeting is to work on rehab for all the main street projects. And there's a lot of street repair work that needs to be done, and we have to pare down which ones are needed most. But we came up actually with about $4.5 to $5.5 million of dollars needed to be. We want to do everything. That's what it would cost. And we're paring it down what we can do as our budget moves along with it. So that's what's happening there. Also, item B, let's go to there and we'll talk a little bit about the Green Safe Cities program, and we're going to call on Kelsey to give us an update.
Mayor and Council, I'll try to keep this relatively brief. If you look in your packet, there's our most recent assessment that we get provided. Kind of gives a status update of where we're at with our Green Safe Cities program. It talks a little bit about the program that we joined a few years ago. So really the basis of this is it's a purely voluntary program that we chose to participate in. That was a program that was created a number of years ago. It was kind of a joint effort between the MPCA, League of Minnesota Cities, and others. And basically it establishes 29 different best practices to try to promote sustainability in your community. Basically then the steps that I keep referring to is based upon how you're progressing through those different best practices, get you different points, different stars, and then moves you through that step progression. So we are currently sitting at a step 2. Should mention Bridget Kenton, who is our energy services specialist with public utilities, does a lot of work on this. She provides assistance submitting the annual kind of action reports. And there was a lot of things that even before we did the program, started the program, that we were already doing. We were already doing as a sustainable community, and a lot of that was just trying to get the items reported. So if you look at a couple of pages in, there's guidelines for step 3. So you can see those are basically the check boxes we have to meet to get to that next level. A lot of them are checked off, except for a sustainable purchasing, policy adoption. And then there's different action items under the BMP 29, which is climate adaptation and community resilience. So we're only a couple of items away from actually getting to step 3. And then you go into a lot of detail. You can see what we've submitted for action items for each of those BMPs through the spreadsheet. So it's really a nice job of how they summarize it. And certainly if you ever have any questions about that, feel free to ask me. And we just try to update the council at least once a year on it.
Okay, so is there any action on it?
No action on that, it's just discussion. Let's go to item C, consideration of approving the EDA project. We're going to call on Sean King to give us an update. We do have some donation money, and you can tell us about the whole project, what's going to cost.
Mayor and Council, yes, last month at the park board meeting, we did, and you guys approved a donation from DAV and the VFW. And at the park board meeting this past month, they would like to move forward with this project and possibly do it in 2 different sections. The first being the main section going out to the lake and the swim area, the horseshoe-shaped second. But to go forward, they would like approval from the council, so they are allowed to move forward getting donations.
Okay, under this project, as Sean said, they want to do it in phases for the fundraising. And the site of this is going to be right across from where Lakeside Restaurant is down there on the beach, that's right across the street there, so you know where the location is on it. Also, during the discussion of that, J&K's used some of that lake shore for quite some time. We're going to also talk to them because they've been having a lot of their own vehicles parked in there. We're going to have a discussion about what can be done, because once this thing gets completely done, they won't have use of that property. I mean, when this is completely done, this handicap project, it'll take up a good share of that area. But the committee recommends that that we move ahead with this ADA dock project.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the ADA dock project. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, the next item is D, is consideration of approving the 2023 dock licenses. You have them listed there, and because we have new people here on the council, when somebody just kind of like to prove, kind of tell us how this dock license works, why these people have to keep doing this every year, otherwise they can lose access to those docks. Who wants to explain that?
Mayor and council, I'll try to give you a Cliff Note version on that. So we do have a city beach ordinance. Boy, Charlie, you want to this one?
Cliff Note version is that we have regulations based upon the city beach ordinance. We don't have a dock ordinance for the entire lake, but we do along the city beach because the city owns that property. At the time that the project was completed back in the 60s, the property owners who gave up their riparian ownership rights to accomplish the project did retain the ability to get dock licenses. And so throughout the years, certain of those property owners, not all of them, have applied for and received dock licenses. Our ordinance does state though that if you apply for and get a license for, is it 2 years? Okay, I'm not sure on the exact numbers. Then you give up that right to continue. So we do this on an annual basis, so it's an annual renewal of their dock licenses.
So the only thing I'd add in the applications, all of the applications are pretty routine, with the exception of J&K Marine. A couple of years ago, they came and requested a couple of those additional short docks that come off the beach. It's really per the ordinance, they only allow the one main dock stem. During COVID, they asked for those additional docks for extra loading space, and the council has approved that in the past. So that's why we don't have this on the consent agenda, because the J&K application is somewhat abnormal because it does include those 2 extra loading docks off it.
Thank you. And so, as Charlie said, it's important for those homeowners that have docks to keep it going, because they do if you forget about it, it's not going to come back to them. So if they want to have a dock in front of their house, they have to be doing that on a regular basis. So the committee recommends, and I so move that we approve those licenses that apply for that.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the 2023 dock licenses. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And then I have one other item that came in late. Here's an application for a special event. It's for the Rotary Club having their Poles and Holes Fishing Derby. Setup date is Friday, February 10th, and the actual fishing derby date is going to be February 11th from 9 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon when the fishing derby finishes, and I recommend that we approve this.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded to approve a special event permit for the Poles and Holes Fishing contest. Discussion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That's all you got. Okay, we'll move to, anything else on finance then?
Nothing else.
And we'll move to public safety committee. Wendy?
Item A is consideration to hiring Michael Hansen as the full-time fire chief. And I am going to hand it over to Kelsey to kind of review that process.
Yep. Mayor and council, pleased to announce we do have basically a conditional offer to Michael Hansen to be our first full-time fire chief. The only condition that's remaining is city council approval. So yeah, a little bit of background for some of the new council members. This is a process that started several months ago. It's actually probably a process that we've been talking about for a few years, knowing that positions become much more demanding, with our call volume going up, a lot of the paperwork requirements and just general administration, that at some point, we're probably going to have to put some sort of hybrid department where we have some full-time staff. That process was maybe sped up just a little bit. Chief Swanson is finishing up his term as fire chief at the end of this year, and he'll be staying on as an interim capacity here into 2023. But basically, as he expressed his desire to step down as chief at the end of the year, the council reviewed our options and basically ended up approving a job description and moving ahead with advertising for that position. We've also met with our partners with the townships to talk about this. Obviously, there's a financial impact to adding a full-time position, and we talked about that quite a bit during our budget process and then with our meeting with the township. So we started, we advertised, I think we had 18 applications. We ended up whittling that down to about 8 or 9 in the first round of interviews. Alderman Zeman sat in on the interviews. We had Phil Hansen from the townships on the interviews. Carrie and I, Jason Carrier from the fire department, and then Fire Chief Ryan Macau from Fergus Falls also sat in on the interviews. We had a good interview panel. We did the first round of virtual interviews, narrowed it down to 3. We ended up having one of the finalists drop out, so we had 2 more. The 2 finalists came to Detroit Lakes. We had that open house. The fire department did the second round of interviews in mid-December, and had a kind of unanimous consensus of the committee to make an offer to Mike. And like I said, at this point, the last thing we need is this council.
There was part of my State of the City address.
Oh! Well, it should be short now, then. Sorry, Mayor.
Well, the committee reviewed this last night at our meeting and recommends that we approve hiring Michael Hansen as our first full-time fire chief.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded to hire Mike Hansen as our first full-time fire chief here at Detroit Lakes. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'd just like to thank the hiring committee. That was a lot of work and a lot of effort was put into finding this candidate, and looking forward to getting to work with him. Item B, consideration to a resolution accepting a donation to the fire department of $9,700 for fire equipment from Turn-In Poachers. Is there anything additional? I think this is what I understand from meeting last night, this is an annual donation, although it sounds like the donation amount has increased this year, so that's a wonderful thing. So I would, committee discussed it and recommend that we approve this, and I so move.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded to accept the donation to the fire department of $9,700 for the Turn-In Poachers. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
And I just also want to recognize that organization and thank them for their generous donation.
I just want to make a comment here because it is the end of the year, and every year we think about what's going on with the fire department and what's going on with the police department. And we've been lucky to have 2 great leaders with Ryan Swanson for the fire department and Chief Todd for the police department. They've done a great job throughout this year, and they come to all of our meetings, answer all of our questions. They've had a lot of work to do. Ryan Swanson, he's virtually gave up his full-time job at Swanson's with all the paperwork it takes now to be a fire chief. And we thank him for all that he's done. And he's anxiously waiting for the new fire chief to come on. But both of these gentlemen have done a great job for the city. We've got to feel real good that we have it.
Okay, anything else, Wendy?
Nothing here.
So, anything on liquor gambling? There was one item, wasn't there, Aaron?
Yeah, there's one for a 1 to 4 day permit, temporary off-sale liquor license for the Detroit Lakes JCs, which is February 4th, which I understand is a stag-at party.
Okay, that's a motion.
Yep.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the application of Aaron Huffman. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Mike, do you want to take item 10A?
Sure. The Public Utilities Commission has for consideration to approval of the IBEW union contract for 2023 through 2025. Public Utilities Commission met yesterday. This had been previously negotiated, and Renell Roberts commented that he was appreciative that it was a 3-year contract, and that the terms were similar to other previously negotiated contracts that have recently been approved. So I recommend approval.
And that's a motion?
That's a motion.
Seconded.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the IBEW union contract for 2023 through 2025. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is there any other items from our city administration come before the council today? Before I get into my state of the city address this evening, I'll take care of the balance of the agenda. I'd like to appoint Mike Stearns as the council liaison to the Public Utilities Commission, and I would entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to appoint Mike as our council liaison to PUC. Discussion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. I don't have...
Say, Mayor, can I interrupt us for a second
Yes.
there? We should have added one more thing. The council also approve appointing Matt Matsuki to Public Utility Commission, because they're basically flip-flopping their positions, so
Sure.
Mike will go on as the council liaison, and I think the idea was Madeline would stay on. She just be.
So I would recommend
I would make
reappointing
that, I'd
Madeline.
make that motion.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded to reappoint Madeline to the Public Utilities Commission. Discussion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. I don't have a recommendation for the food pantry board. We've typically had a council member who served as, again, like a liaison and a board member. So if anyone in the council has any interest in helping out the food pantry, you can let me know. I would like to recommend the name of Jenna Swartz to be appointed to the Planning Commission for the next 3-year term to replace Nan Winter.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion been made and seconded to appoint Jenna Swartz to the Planning Commission. Discussion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And also, we would like to have a member from the City Council that would be willing to serve on the Minnesota Flyers Gymnastic Board. So if anyone in the council has any interest in that, you can let me know. The Becker County Assessor has notified the city that the board of review for the 2023 assessments will be held on April 25th at 9:30 a.m. So I would like to appoint a board of equalization, and I would appoint myself, Alderman Josephson, Alderman Zeman. Is that enough? Do we need more than 3?
Need one more.
But we don't have anybody else who's certified?
They don't have to be certified, but we just need one more.
Okay.
Eventually, we'd like to get them certified, but you don't have to.
Is there anyone that can make a meeting at 9:30? It typically only lasts maybe an hour that day. If you would be willing to be on the board of review, I'd appreciate it.
Does everyone understand? The board of review is basically where people come in and have questions about their assessed value on their properties, and basically ask if there's going to be a different consideration from the board of equalization.
The mayor actually be able to make that.
Okay, well, I'll appoint Matt Polkey as well. The joint governance meeting dates are before you. The council meeting dates are before you, and we're going to continue to meet right here in this room, correct? And I believe that takes care of anything unless there's anyone else in the audience. I'll try to be brief with my remarks here. There's just so much good stuff that's going on in Detroit Lakes, so it's hard to get too brief. So to the City Council, City staff, and to the citizens of Detroit Lakes, it is an honor to deliver this evening the annual State of the City Address for the year 2022. Overall, 2022 was a good year in Detroit Lakes as we remain an excellent place to live, to work, and to visit. Detroit Lakes remains fiscally sound despite drastic reductions in local government aid over the past 20 years, amounting to millions of dollars in lost revenue that the city has had to make up locally. Despite these challenges, we continue to enjoy one of the lowest tax rates in the region, including cities like Fergus Falls, Bemidji, Thief River Falls, and others. And our city tax rate is significantly lower than the average tax rate for all of greater Minnesota cities with populations between 5,000 and 10,000. Detroit Lakes is fortunate also to have 2 revenue funds to reduce property taxes. Transferred to the general fund from the city electric utility will be $641,845 for 2023. Our municipal liquor store had record sales surpassing $8.9 million in 2022, making our operation the 7th highest grossing municipal liquor store in Minnesota. The city will make an annual transfer from the liquor fund to the general fund of $540,000. To put the value of these 2 revenue funds in perspective, without the combined total direct transfer to the general fund of these dollars, property taxes in Detroit Lakes would have to immediately increase approximately 25% across the board to maintain the status quo. Our finance department also projects that final receipts for the city's food and beverage tax in 2022 will be approximately $480,000. That was my best guess already. While not a direct funds transfer, the tax provides an ongoing resource for stewardship to our area lakes, for parking and trail improvements, and for continued redevelopment of our business corridor sector. The continued increase in the food and beverage tax revenue also represents another barometer of the continued growth in the city. Detroit Lakes financed several projects in 2022 through the issuance of bonds, and to issue that debt, the city had to undergo a bond rating by Standard & Poor's. As a result of that rating, the city received a AA stable rating due to our very strong finances, strong financial management, and growing tax base. This is an excellent bond rating for a city our size and saves the citizens of Detroit Lakes significant dollars in lower interest rates. City finance staff presented the final budget and levy to the council in December, proposing a 9.86 increase in the city's property tax levy. Several factors influenced the 2023 budget, including another decrease in local government aid of $144,599, unsettled 2023 union contracts, increased costs of capital equipment, increased levy for the new public works facility debt, and the new full-time fire chief position. Despite the levy increase, the city's property values grew overall by 14.58%, which increased the overall tax capacity, lessening the impact to property owners. For example, without a valuation increase, the median home in Detroit Lakes would see a decrease of about $31 in 2023 on the city portion of their tax bill. Numerous significant capital projects were completed in 2022. The runway taxiway extension project at the Detroit Lakes Becker County Airport was largely wrapped up. The construction of a new hangar to house the LifeLink Air Ambulance helicopter was completed in 2022. The airport received 2 grants for the project, and LifeLink signed a 10-year lease agreement that will cover the remaining cost of the hangar. The airport also awarded a bid for the reconstruction of the parking lot. The project's being done in conjunction with the replacement of the 32-plus-year-old fueling system. The airport submitted a 2023 FAA Airport Improvement Grant pre-application to fund taxi lane and apron improvements for the eventual construction of 2 new 6-unit T hangars. If funding is received, the site work would take place in 2023, and the hangars would be constructed in 2024. The project includes demolition of the old block hangar located closest to Highway 10. As evidenced by the waiting list, demand for hangars at the airport remains strong, and new hangars would be a welcome investment. The Becker County Museum project encountered several construction delays, and we heard from John tonight about some of those. Discovery of asbestos in the old museum required it to be abated, which postponed demolition of the building until early winter and subsequently kept the parking lot improvements from being completed in 2022. The paving of the parking lot, landscaping, and other site improvements are scheduled to be completed this year. Not much visible progress was made in 2022 on the Heartland Trail. Becker County, though, was able to complete the final design of the trail segment in the Frazee during this past year. The biggest issue for the Heartland Trail was the state legislature's failure to pass a bonding bill last year. The proposed bonding bill would have provided additional funding for the connection into Frazee. Assuming the legislature passes a bonding bill this session and the trail is included, it is possible we can see the last segment of the Frazee completed in 2023. The most significant project to get off the ground in 2022 was the City Hall remodel project. The city staff and finance committee worked with our architects for much of the first 6 months of the year, going over various layouts and selecting the best remodeling options. After bids came in higher than expected, the City Council and the Public Utilities Commission both approved the $7.7 million project. City staff vacated the building in November and demolition began in December. The project has an anticipated construction schedule of 14 months. During the construction period, city administration and staff is utilizing the old police department building as a temporary city hall. Public utility staff is using extra space at the new police department building. City staff and Public Works Committee spent much of 2022 working with our architects on the final design of the new proposed Public Works facility. Staff and the committee members also had the opportunity to tour the new Becker County Highway facility in September while it was under construction. The estimated project cost is now sits at over $12 million, and the project is currently out for bid with a bid opening scheduled the 18th this month.
It's got it postponed to the 24th.
Later this month.
Later this month.
No bonding bill at the state legislature also meant no progress on the renovation of Washington Ballpark. The Ballpark Committee continued to work on the project though this past year by reviewing the design, gathering new cost estimates, and meeting with the Minnesota State Historic Preservation Office. A lot of work still needs to be done, and getting approval from SHPO is going to be an additional hurdle. On the bonding front, it appears the governor's office is still supporting the project, and a revised bonding request of $1,405,800 has been submitted. Even if the bonding bill is passed and our project is included, it would be a challenge to construct the improvements and get them completed in 2023. Reconstruction of Willow Street West, Holmes Street, and Frazee Street was a carryover project from last year that unfortunately took all summer to complete. The project was funded using financing from the Public Facilities Authority, the American Rescue Plan Act, funding was used to lower special assessments, and MSA gas tax dollars. The two big projects that started in 2022 were Westlake Drive Phase 1, which is from Legion Road to County Road 6, and Phase 2 from County Road 6 to the Pelican River. The Phase 1 project was delayed by right-of-way issues, which were finally resolved in 2022. Phase 2 was driven by the need to replace the existing sanitary force main with a new sanitary gravity sewer main, eliminating sewer backup issues. The Phase 2 project started a little earlier than Phase 1, and we're very fortunate that both projects were paid before the start of winter. Both projects will need to be completed this coming year, including the installation of the trail and the final lift of asphalt. While Highland Drive was technically a county project, the city participated in the cost and was instrumental in writing a $1.25 million local road improvement program grant. This project also had a late summer start, but was able to be paid before winter set in. The second lift of asphalt will occur in the spring. Long Pines Estate Phase 3 was mostly completed in 2022, creating 27 new building lots, and Ridgeview First Edition was completed in 2022, the first phase of the subdivision, creating 13 lots. South Shore Park landscaping, planning, and surfacing of the sport court was completed in 2022. A ribbon cutting was held on June 15th. Over $310,000 of private donations were raised to fund over $1 billion in park improvements. Several meetings were held with city, county, and food pantry officials to discuss location options for building a new food pantry facility. In June, the Detroit Lakes Development Authority agreed to sell a 1-acre tract of land from the recently acquired Cleveland Farm along Terry Street. A preliminary engineering report was also done to determine feasibility of sending water sewer utilities to the food pantry site, along with serving a new subdivision on the south side of Terry Street. A preliminary engineering utilities will hopefully be installed in 2023. The City Council in May approved $250,000 of the American Rescue Plan Act funding for the food pantry project. The county also approved a similar $250,000 ARPA appropriation. If the Becker County Food Pantry can secure the rest of the funding, construction of the facility is expected in 2023. Following the March City Council strategic planning session, the City Council approved a proposal from RDG Consultants in May to develop a master plans for the Pavilion and City Park, Westlake Drive reconstruction, and the arena gymnastics area. RDG began the process by meeting with staff and focus groups in August. A public open house was held on August 30th. Subsequent meetings have been held with the Arena Commission, Park Board, focus groups, and staff. RDG did present preliminary designs of the pavilion, Westlake Drive, and the arena to the City Council at their December 20th work session. More refinement of these plans will take place in January and February, with RDG returning to address the Council sometime after that. Other bullet points from 2022. The finale of the city's 150th anniversary was Polar Fest in the Ice Palace in early 2022. The palace was amazing, and along with the Polar Fest brought 2 weeks of events and thousands of visitors to our community. Redistricting and drawing of the ward boundaries were completed this past March. The City Council approved $200,000 of food and beverage tax funding to serve as a match for a legacy grant application at Detroit Mountain Recreation Area. The Detroit Lakes Development Authority handled the application process and successfully secured a grant of $1,325,941 later in the year. The City Council held a strategic planning session on March 24th and 25th of last year. The City Council authorized the Minnesota Flyers Gymnastics to move ahead with their expansion project and executed a new 7-year management agreement in September. The City Council hosted a meeting recently with our newly elected State Representative Jim Joy and our new State Senator Rob Kupak. Important topics to Detroit Lakes were presented and discussed, including affordable housing, child care, workforce issues, local government aid, and the state bonding bill. 2022 was another very busy year in the city's public utility, continuing a growth trend we've seen over the past several years. Our public utilities commissioners are committed to sustain the city's growth, recognizing the desire of businesses to grow and expand, as well as the fact that Detroit Lakes is a desirable place to live and work. In early 2022, the utility upgraded the billing system, providing better data to our customers and better flexibility in our accounting practices. The water and electric utilities conducted a cost of service and rate study in 2022 to establish rates capable of funding various capital projects and provide financial stability for the utility in future years. Supply chain issues continued to delay material and equipment for our water meter changeout program. Much of the remaining equipment was delivered in August. However, due to contractor scheduling and labor shortages, completion will not be until this spring. Equipment shortages and long lead times impacted everyone in the utility industry in 2022. With adequate supply on hand and good planning, along with coordination with other departments, the utilities were able to stay ahead of the needs of the community with equipment and materials. Projections for 2023 are for continued equipment constraints and long lead times. This will require good planning and communication efforts going into the new year. The new South substation was energized in the spring of 2022 and is now serving the southern portion of our electrical system. The electric department completed the last section of acquiring customers on the southwest side of Long Lake. This completed a 6-year phased-in acquisition of those customers and added about 50 new electric customers to the utility. Westlake Drive Phases 1 and 2 were also big projects for the electric department. Phase 1 included removal of the overhead lines and placing them underground. This was a challenging project due to the compressed timeline related to a late summer construction start. The crews did an excellent job, and the project will be completed in 2023. The remainder of Phase 2 will also be completed in the summer of 2023. The wastewater and water utilities focused on the continued operational success of the new wastewater treatment plant and monitoring potential future regulatory requirements. Staff worked with our city engineer to complete a study on the need for a new water tower and potential costs for a new water tower. The report was presented to the utilities in July, and a determination of when construction will begin will be reviewed in this coming year. The new police department facility continues to be a tremendous asset for the department, city administration, and for our community. The 2022 calendar for the police department community room showed approximately 165 meetings, training sessions, presentations, and events that were held in the room. This space has fulfilled a need within our community and has strengthened relationships between our citizens and the police department. With the City Hall remodeling project, the police department is hosting 5 public utility employees utilizing expansion offices and workstations. The police department began vetting body camera suppliers in early '22, and with city council approval, the systems were ordered. All the items are received on time, and everything is up and running. Launching body cameras has been an expensive project at $95,000 and has required hundreds of hours of work to implement. But in today's law enforcement climate, body cameras are an expected piece of equipment, increasing accountability and transparency for both our officers and the public. Overall, the department had a busy year, responding to 11,843 calls for service. Finally, and remarkably, the local option sales tax used to fund the police department building will pay off the project in full by May of this year, several years ahead of schedule. I don't know the exact number here.
Yeah,
4 years ahead?
Original projection was February of 2028.
Great. And it's going to save considerable interest costs being paid off this early, so it's great news. With the pending retirement of Fire Chief Swanson, and no fire chiefs, Kelsey already went through this one part, so we'll jump ahead a little bit. Overall, 2022 was an exciting and busy year for the Detroit Lakes Fire Department. The department responded to 293 calls for service in 2022, an increase over previous years. In addition to the calls for service, members continued with training and meetings, averaging an additional 2 hours every week throughout the year. Membership stayed consistent over the past year, and recently 2 probationary members were added to the department. Unfortunately, the department is short of a full roster of 30 members, currently at 27 firefighters. The department has been gaining members over the past few years, and with no retirements on the horizon, the department is hopeful to increase the roster this coming year. Annexation, expansion of our park system, facilities, increased infrastructure continues to put demands on our public works department, and the current volume of streets, parking lots, sanitary sewer, lift stations, stormwater ponds, and many other city-owned facilities is significant. I urge all of you to read through the Public Works Department annual report to get a true appreciation of the number of facilities and infrastructure that's cared for by our city public works employees. One area in which we can all be very proud is the fact that Detroit Lakes has 325 acres of parkland. And each year we continue to add and expand our multi-use trail system. In terms of water quality stewardship, this past year, our Public Works Department completed thousands of miles of street sweeping, removing many tons of debris and pollutants. Supplementing the sweeping, the department maintains over 100 stormwater treatment ponds in the city, preventing harmful pollutants from potentially entering our lakes and waterways. Much like our former police department facility, our current public works facility is cramped and outdated, and in many ways lacks the ability to properly maintain much of our city equipment. We look forward to opening bids later this month for a new state-of-the-art facility to be constructed on North Tower Road. Cameras have been installed in the city park and People's Park, almost fully installed at South Shore Park, and Long Lake Park is scheduled to have cameras installed in 2024. RDG has also been meeting with the City Park Board, Arena Commission, residents, and other stakeholders regarding People's Park, the City Park, the Pavilion, and the Kent Freeman Arena, and updating, remodeling, and rebuilding the facilities. Construction in Detroit Lakes saw a strong start in 2022, but slowed in the second half of the year due to rising interest rates, lingering supply chain issues, cost of products, and labor shortages. Over 380 permits were issued in 2022, representing a slight decrease from the three previous years. However, permit valuation increased from approximately $39 million in 2021 to $49 million in 2022. New home construction saw the largest decline with 23 permits issued compared to 34 and 32 in the previous 2 years. Residential valuations are 23 new homes at $9 million, 75 residential additions, remodels, and garages at $4.3 million, along with 142 maintenance projects subject to building code. Commercial construction has remained steady throughout the year with a mix of new and remodel projects. 2022 saw 34 commercial permits with approximate valuation of $25.4 million. Through the Detroit Lakes Development Authority, Detroit Lakes made significant gains in economic development through its strategy of emphasizing business retention and expansion, combined with attracting businesses whose operations are suitable to our community. The authority continues to successfully utilize the $1.5 million Economic Development Grant and Loan Fund established by the Detroit Lakes Public Utilities. The Community Development Office continues to use $955,000 in Development Authority loan funds, the revolving loan fund of $294,000, and the Detroit Lakes Loan Fund of $584,866 for new and expanding businesses. The Detroit Lakes Development Authority assisted several new businesses and housing projects this past year, and the financial and other assistance provided by the authority in 2022 led to several business startups. The Development Authority also focuses on housing and several years ago completed a housing study which was later updated. This study has been instrumental in helping to spur significant single-family and multifamily housing starts. I urge you to take time to read through the year-end reports from the Development Authority, Planning Commission, and the 22 Annexation Plan. So in conclusion, thank you to our volunteers serving on our various advisory boards and commissions, assisting the City Council in making decisions for the city's future. To the citizens and businesses of Detroit Lakes, on behalf of the City Council, thank you for your support and for all that you do to make Detroit Lakes the great community that it is. To all Detroit Lakes City employees, thank you for your good work this past year. You are the professionals that keep our city functioning efficiently and who not only serve our citizens, but equally important, make our city appealing to our visitors. To our city administrator and all the various department heads, thank you for your hard work and dedication in making our city run smoothly, being creative and finding ways to save taxpayer money, and by managing your departments well. Congratulations and welcome to our new city council members, Sean Carlson, Mike Stearns, Jay Durrani, and Jackie Buboltz. And to the 22 city council and Vice Mayor Zeman, thank you from all the citizens of Detroit Lakes for your service, leadership, and accomplishments this past year. It's an honor to serve as your mayor, and I look forward to working with all of you in 2023. Good night.